the forecast for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. Today, decreasing clouds. Highs around 9. Northwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly clear. Lows around 9 below. Northwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Lowest wind chills around 24 below. Sunday, sunny. Highs around 4. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lowest wind chills around 25 below.
Hi everybody, Paul B here, and I have run across an amazing example that demonstrates, not in words, but it shows you will hear this with your own ears, how much my life has been destroyed by my loud and violent neighbors and by every Minnesota authority's adamant refusal to do their jobs and to stop that noise, which has resulted in me living inside the car during a Minnesota winter where I'm speaking to you from right now. I cannot believe I ran across this. What it is a combination of something on my cheap and cheesy piece of junk laptop computer that I have in this car and something I found on a jump drive in my glove compartment. This is amazing. Here's what happened. On my laptop computer, this junky laptop computer in my car, I have installed a digital audio workstation called Reaper. And that is the same recording software that I used in my home studio on my desktop computer. The difference is that on my home computer I had tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and software plugins which turn that into a full-blown music studio like Abbey Road, where the greatest albums ever recorded, Dark Side of the Moon and the Beatles' Abbey Road were recorded. I had the software equivalents of all that equipment on my computer then, so I could make very good productions. And I also had video production to match that, green screen and everything. I could have made Star Wars in my apartment if I'd been able to actually do anything with that studio. On this laptop in my car, that ain't the case. I have no plugins because those are all lost. I've lost everything for pennies on the dollar just to survive. I've lost everything I built up with that studio, and I never got to use that studio for anything, as you're about to hear. As I was messing with this laptop, I realized that Reaper comes with some free plugins, reverbs and equalizers and samplers and things. They're just terrible. They're horrible. They're almost useless compared to the awesome software I used to have on my home studio, but it's all I've got, so I was fiddling with them to see what I could do with them. And don't forget, I don't have a piano keyboard in here, so I can't play synthesizers or anything. I have to use my computer keyboard to try to play music. So what I came up with, the best I could do, was basically just a bunch of noise. It's hideous. It sounds like someone who's blindfolded with earplugs in was just hitting a keyboard with a hammer. It's awful, but it's the best I could come up with because this... Anyway, the point is, what I found on this jump drive in my car was the last project I was working on as my noisy neighbors destroyed my life. It's the very last thing I was working on when I had to stop doing anything because Muffy and the Leech had made my life at home totally unbearable and had made using that studio of mine untenable. This is 4 years ago. Now, if you looked at the file system on my computer, my home computer, what you would find is that from the day I moved in back in early 2007, I was working on something every single day at home. Every single day. I'm not aware of an exception. There might be a day where I slept for 24 hours because I was exhausted. I don't know, but this was part of the evidence I had against these people. The file system clearly showed things that I had created, and I couldn't create them unless I put in the effort. So it shows that I put in the effort, the time, the energy, the effort. Every single day from the day I moved in until the foot-stomping bitch moved in, all of a sudden the quantity of what I was producing began to plummet visibly. You could just tell by looking at the file system. There were fewer and fewer files being created by me. When Muffy and the Leech moved in, it took about 2 weeks before there was nothing ever again on my computer of creative work. Nothing. The only thing you could remotely call creative work is this website, Meannesota.com. But while that may look impressive, the fact is that's just text. HTML is nothing more than text with tags built into it. And I wrote most of that at coffee shops and such. You know, you could say that the writing is creative, but in terms of me producing music, producing video, producing things that I could sell, things that I could turn into my own business, those ended with Muffy and the Leech. And my file system showed that because any creative work just disappeared. It stopped. That was 6 months before I called the police to my apartment, and you can hear that police call on my YouTube channel where the police officer didn't do a damn thing. He didn't understand. This is 6 months after these people had brought my creative life to an end and rendered this tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment I had bought absolutely useless. And this police officer did nothing. So the point is, you're about to hear two pieces of audio. One is this song that I was working on that got cut off, that I couldn't finish because Muffy and the Leech just almost immediately when they moved in destroyed my ability to do anything at home except lay on the floor in the fetal position, because I could hold a phone in my hand and there's nobody I could call. I couldn't call the police, they were useless. I couldn't call any agency or authority because they were all useless. I couldn't call the landlord because he was useless. So you're going to hear that audio, and then you're going to hear what I just produced inside this car with the resources I have now. And when you contrast the two, it's going to be more than obvious how much I have lost. Because what I had before was the ability to make productions that could go on the radio, that could have been submitted to the Sundance Film Festival and other film festivals, things that could have given me a career outside, you know, a self-employment career doing what I wanted to do. That was my dream, and that is why I had worked so hard for it. That's why I bought all of that equipment. That's why I put that studio together. And it was destroyed by my neighbors. I couldn't do anything at home with that loud and violent noise. So let me tell you about this track. It's a song that my band did in San Diego. I moved from San Diego to Minnesota, and when I was in San Diego, I was working very hard at my job, and I was also working on that 10-year project that you can read about on my profile on my website, where I was studying the reality of poverty, the wealth gap, and debtors' imprisonment in the United States of America. That project went from 1996 to 2006. I was in this band from maybe 2003 to 2006. Playing with this band was about the only leisure I ever got, and I loved it. One of the things I loved about it was that we had a lot of original songs written by our guitarist slash songwriter slash singer. His name was Nick Wagner. Outstanding songwriter. And we always thought we would go to a studio and record these professionally, but we just never had time. And I left San Diego rather suddenly, so we never had a chance to record them. And we could never find an engineer who was able to record us live so that it sounded good. So I don't really have any good recordings of us playing this song, or any of our songs. The song I chose, I'll tell you why I chose this song after you hear it. But what you're going to hear is what I call a guide track. It says V1 on the file name. That means that it has MIDI drums, so it's not me playing drums, it's just a computer drums to give you a guide. It's me playing guitar, and it's me playing bass guitar, and it's laying down the basics of the song so that I can go in later and overlay more guitars, guitar solos, and then I can take it to a professional studio where I could play a real drum set, since obviously I can't do that in an apartment. For all that studio I had, it made no noise. The neighbors didn't even know I had all that stuff, because it was all done through headphones. I had it out in the car because I would bring things out to my car so I could hear it through real speakers, and I have a very good car stereo, so that's why I would bring it out here. But obviously, since I ended up just abandoning this project because of Muffy and the Leech, miraculously I somehow left the chip in the car. Thank God for that. I still have this. It's about the only thing I have left. So I'm going to play the song for you now. Just listen to it and just get a understanding that it's a guide track. Realize that when I was done with this, it would sound just like any song you hear on the radio. So let me go ahead and just play this track for you right now. Okay, now that was the song that I was recording with my home studio. Now I want you to hear the quote song that I just came up with. And I'm not kidding, folks. I'm not joking. This is the best I could come up with just trying to do anything, trying to get a recording of anything musical on this laptop computer. Listen to what I can do when I'm homeless and when I've lost all of that equipment that I spent tens of thousands of dollars on. Here you go. Now, I hope people out there, even if you're not a musician, you can sense that there's a qualitative difference between the two songs that you just heard. I hope you can sense that. And you know what? It's more than the fact that the second song was in mono and the first one was in stereo. Okay? The first song was a good song, and it was headed toward being something that could be played on the radio. The second song is a bunch of crap. It's garbage. And it's the best that I can do, homeless, living in a car with nothing more than a cheap laptop computer that has no power. And all of my gear and equipment and software gone. Sold for pennies on the dollar just to survive, because not one authority in the state of Minnesota would defend me against these loud and violent neighbors who brought the work on that first song you heard to an abrupt halt 4 years ago. This is 4 years of my life I have had taken away from me. That's the length of a presidential term. That's the length it takes to get a bachelor's degree in college. That is what has been stolen from me so far. Because it's all gone, I have no future to look forward to either. Now, I want to tell you what the lyrics were to that first song. Remember, the song's written by Nick Wagner. Nick, long before I moved to San Diego, he played guitar with another fellow. Okay? This other fellow was named Eddie Vedder. Eddie went on later to be singer with Pearl Jam. One of the things that Nick witnessed with Eddie, because Eddie's a hell of a nice guy, one of the things Nick saw with Eddie was a guy had moved all the way across the country for a job that was promised to him. He moved to San Diego. And when he got here, they reneged on it and he didn't have the job. And this guy was basically in the situation I'm in today. He was stuck. He was stuck across the country, away from his family, without a job, nowhere to live or anything. Now, at the time, Eddie was working as, I believe, a security guard. But Eddie took the money that he had, which wasn't much. He was poor back then. He took the money that he had and he gave it to this guy so that he could go back home. That's how generous he was. And presumably still is. Nick wrote this song based on that, based on witnessing that. He always thought that was one of the most beautiful, generous things he'd ever seen. And I'll tell you something, friends, Nick himself and his wife are equally generous. In fact, outside of Meannesota, generous people like that are everywhere. But I can't find people like that in Meannesota. I want to recite the lyrics to that song for you. Now remember, it was inspired by something that Eddie did when he made an incredible sacrifice. Something that could have really hurt him, but he made that sacrifice to help this stranger who was in a really, really tight spot. Here's just some of the lyrics to that song. You walk past them every day, you close your eyes and turn away. Are you really that unkind, or have you lost your mind? I see the signs. I read between the lines. I know it's time to care. Did you see them on the streets? Did you feel their longing needs? Did you lend a helping hand, or don't you even understand? Those are the lyrics to that first song. The song is called Time to Care by Nick Wagner. And it was about what he witnessed. It was inspired by what he witnessed with Eddie Vedder doing this incredibly generous gesture for a stranger who was in need. These are good people. And it's more than a little bit ironic that 9 years later I find myself in the same situation. I find myself living in a car, but I'm not doing it around an Eddie Vedder or around a Nick Wagner. I'm doing it in Meannesota, where nobody cares whether I live or die, where nobody is that generous, makes that much of a sacrifice to save someone else's life. I want to just, it makes me want to say a few things about what it's like to be homeless. As if this irony of me being homeless isn't crazy enough, about 20 years ago, I co-founded a homeless shelter. Now, I bugged out of that fairly quickly, and the reason is because as soon as we started it, the government took over everything. They required so much paperwork, so much documentation to keep your 501c3 status. Fundraising became the key issue, mainly to maintain all of that government requirements, and that was 20 years ago. It's much worse today. So basically, we couldn't do what we wanted to do to help the homeless. The government just shot it all to hell with all of the regulation and IRS tax, all, to remain tax exempt. It was just ridiculous. So I got out of there because we couldn't help the homeless. We couldn't do anything. But I did co-found that shelter, and I met so many homeless people. And one of the things I found that was rather shocking is that a lot of these people who people point their fingers at and say, oh, they're just drunks, they're just drug addicts, they deserve to live in filth, third world conditions on the street. What I found is that a lot of these people didn't, they took up drugs or alcohol after they became homeless, because their situation was so desperate and so hopeless that they had nothing else to turn to for comfort. That's when they got addicted to the drugs or addicted to the booze. Now, obviously not everyone. There are people who drink, they're genuine alcoholics at home, and that's how they fall into homelessness. But a lot of these people, these people were so incredibly well educated. There were PhDs, there were master's degrees. At least half of the homeless people I dealt with had advanced degrees, in terms of at least a bachelor's. These were well-educated homeless people. It's circumstances that made them homeless. And other people lack the empathy to recognize that other people's circumstances are not your circumstances. Quit questioning them, quit accusing them, and just help them. Because most of them will take your help and run with it, and they'll be all right. But if you let them fall to the point where they start drowning their sorrows as homeless people in drugs and alcohol, then you've got the people who you give them some help, and they go out and they buy a bottle of booze with it. Help them when they first become homeless, before they become so desperate. It's time to care. That's what that song was about. That's what Eddie Vedder prevented this guy from going through. If Eddie had not done that for this stranger who moved cross country, that guy might have ended up living out of a bottle in San Diego for the rest of his life, until he died. I'm sitting here in this car with nothing to do. I'm the most motivated person on the face of the earth. Look at all the stuff I did. I just told you my computer had creative work on it every single day for 5 years. From the day I moved into my apartment until my noisy neighbors prevented me from doing anything. It just eats me away. It eats my soul to sit in this car every day and to not be able to work and to earn money and to do something productive and to do my creative work that I wanted to do. And all of that is ignoring the fact that they've destroyed my 10-year plan to move to Old Route 66 and start my own business so that I'm free and independent of these batshit crazy corporations as my employers, right? Even if you ignore that, I can't do anything sitting in this car in a Minnesota winter. You just heard the weather report at the beginning of this. Okay? And to help give a couple examples of what I'm talking about, consider what it takes for you to maintain your hygiene, which is exactly what it took for me to maintain my hygiene before my noisy neighbors moved in. I would get up, I would walk into the bathroom, take a shower, wash my hair, brush my teeth, shave, pull the odd hair out of my eyebrow, and voila, I'm done. I smell great, right? Look good, smell good, everything's fine. I'm clean. I'm healthy. That's all there was to it. And that's all it is for you right now if you're housed. For me, living in this car, that's not the way it is. what I have is this work tote, something that's meant for carrying hammers and wrenches. It has all my toiletries in it. But of course, when it's below zero, the shampoo doesn't flow. The shaving cream becomes liquid. And you try to use things like a razor blade, it just cuts your face to shreds. I have to go find a gas station bathroom, which is not the cleanest place in the world. There's more hepatitis in there than there is at the CDC, right? And I've got people banging on the door trying to get in while I'm in there trying to shave, trying to somehow wash my hair, which means sticking my face right into that sink where these foul degenerates have been in there doing God knows what in that place. And after all of that effort to try to shave and get my hair clean, be somewhat presentable, I haven't taken a shower. That doesn't do anything for the rest of my body, which is why I still smell like a toilet after all of that effort. And I mean effort. It takes a long time to try to do all of that stuff versus walking into your bathroom and taking care of business. That's just maintaining hygiene. When I open the passenger door to my car, because I have stuff piled up in here, it's all I have. It's all I have in the world, really. It's all piled up in this car. When I open my car door, I have to make sure that something doesn't fall out because it might be something I need. It might be something valuable. It might be food. It might be this recorder I'm talking into right now. It might be my headphones. It might be my computer. It might be my blanket or my pillow. I don't know. I have to make sure it doesn't fall out and roll away or blow away, or I lose it forever. If it's nighttime, it's really hard to know if I've lost something if I have to open that passenger door. Do you have to deal with that when you're looking for your keys at home? Do you have to deal, just by the act of searching for something, risking losing something of yours forever and ever and ever? I have to do that every time I search for something. If I'm looking for my little flashlight in this car at night, I have to go borrow a flashlight from someone else quite often to find my flashlight, because there's so much junk piled in here that I can't find anything. I have a cup of coffee, styrofoam cup of coffee. It had about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of coffee in it. This one cup of coffee I have spilled 4 times now. 4 times. Once I spilled it on my pant leg and the upholstery on my driver's seat. Twice I spilled it on the floor. And the 3rd time, I spilled right on my groin. I have a big, brown, huge brown spot all around my groin right now. On the only pair of pants I really have to wear until I can get something changed out. So I have to walk around with this big, huge brown spot, wet spot in my groin. That's 1 cup of coffee. Most of the cups of coffee I bring in here end up getting spilled. So I'm destroying my car, I'm destroying my clothes. There's nothing more unpleasant when it's 9 below zero than having a wet groin. When I have to use the restroom, I'm sitting in a bucket seat where my butt is lower than my knees, right? It's made for comfort when you're driving. But when I put a bottle up there because I have to urinate into it, I have to urinate uphill. Can you imagine what happens? I'm not going to tell you. Imagine it for yourself. It's not pleasant, and it doesn't do anything to improve the odor inside this car. These are the things that I have to deal with, that I did not have to deal with when I was in a home. Although, frankly, when I was in that home when the loud and violent neighbors moved in and made my apartment uninhabitable, I had to piss inside of a bottle in my bedroom there because I could not stand to go to my bathroom because it was industrial strength, loud and violent noise. It was driving me crazy. But at least I could piss in a bottle in my bedroom without spraying it all over the place. I can't do that in a car. Anything I want to do is a chore. Anything I want to do takes me 10 times longer than it takes you. That's what it's like being homeless. So when you point a finger at these people and say they're a bunch of lazy bums, why don't you just get a job? All these cliches. Oh, God. Oh, mother of God. All these cliches. Just get a job. I've been trying to get my professional life back for, since 1 week before Thanksgiving last year, a year ago, 13, 14 months ago. They terminated my employment with no advance notice a few days before Thanksgiving, before the holidays. And this is now 2 sets of holidays that have been nothing but misery and suffering for me. Okay? That's what it's like to be homeless. Before you condemn people when you don't know anything about what they're going through, try it yourself. And when I say try it, what I mean is cut off all contact with your friends and your family, leave your phone at home, because most homeless people can't afford smartphones. I sure don't. I have a little junk track phone, and the only thing I used it for was Craigslist and texting. I mean, it costs an arm and a leg to get any time on that thing. I can't even really use it. Leave your phone. Okay, if you want internet access, you're going to have to go find a way to get it. You're going to have to go sit in a car outside a coffee shop and watch how people stare at you when you do that. You know, from what I can tell, they assume you're either downloading child porn or something like that, or that you're homeless and therefore you're a lazy bum. Try it sometime. You don't even have to go homeless to do it. Just try that much. Just go out at night, take a laptop computer, and sit outside various Wi-Fi hotspots, outside of coffee shops and restaurants and things, because the light from your monitor is going to reflect off your face, and people outside your car are going to see this lit up face. They're going to know that you're on a computer, and they're going to wonder, why is that person doing this? And just look at the looks they give you, and you'll get a small taste of what it's like to be homeless. If you can, if you have a 2-week vacation, take 1 week and be homeless. Take $20 or $50. Take $50. Leave your phone at home. Tell your friends and family not to talk to you for a week. Go out there and do things. And after 4 or 5 days, when you've got a beard, when you smell like a gutter, go out and try to get a job. And what you're going to find is that when you go to talk to an employer, they can instantly sense that something is dreadfully wrong with your situation. They can sense it by looking at you, and the fact is it changes some aura about you that you project. You project a lack of confidence that you would have if all of these basics, fundamentals of life that you need to survive are in place. When I would go out for a job interview before, I was absolutely confident. I had no reason not to be. I'm damn good at what I do. I'm damn competent. I'm reliable. All the references I need. Nothing to worry about. I'm well groomed. My hygiene is taken care of. I'm one of those rare people who never feared a job interview. I welcome it. Today, I absolutely fear it. Walking in and asking someone from a job when I look like I shaved in the dark. My face is all cut up. My hair is super long and cut unevenly because I'm cutting it myself. I smell like an outhouse. And I'm presenting this unconscious aura of someone who is out of control, who does not have control over their own life. Good luck getting a job there. So the next time you tell a homeless person, why don't you just get a job? Turn off your television set and think a bit first. Because what you're saying is full of shit. In the United States of America, supposedly the most prosperous, most free nation in the world that the world has ever known, not only do we have the largest prison population in the world, in fact, our prison population is greater than that of China and Russia combined. And most of those people work as slaves for a prison industrial complex that is for profit. Most of them are in prison for no good reason, for victimless crimes. There was no victim. They just did something that the government said is, quote, wrong. And they find themselves locked in a prison working as a slave for a prison industrial complex. A lot of judges, prosecutors, legislators own stock in this prison industry. Can you figure out why they send so many people to prison? Why they pass so many laws? And when those people get out of prison, guess what? Because they've been to prison, they end up homeless quite often. Here's another thing. Imagine that the world 1,000 years ago, no electricity, no city lights, no street lights. You look up in the night sky at night and you will see a ton of stars. Now, of the stars that you can see and resolve, I'm not talking about the Milky Way, which looks like a big Milky Way. I'm talking about the individual stars that you can see distinctly in the night sky. If you take the number of those stars that you can see in the night sky, both in the northern and the southern hemisphere, there are 600 times more human beings that are homeless in the United States of America alone than all of those stars. That's how many homeless people this prosperous and generous and good and free nation have. Something is really wrong here. Do we really have that many people who are just a bunch of lazy bums, or is there a systemic problem that's causing it? Every one of these homeless people has a story. Some of them, yeah, they got into drugs, they got drunk, they lost their job, they lost their home, they lost their wife, they lost their dog, they lost their truck. Yes, but not all of them. Like I said, the homeless people I met were incredibly well educated compared to homeless people in India. Although India now probably has a better education system than we do. But at the time, PhDs, master's degrees, people who worked really, really, really hard for a good life, they end up homeless. And quite often it's because of their education that they're homeless. Because either they're so much more competent than their bosses that it causes all kinds of conflicts with their bosses, which is a lot of the problem that I had, or their student loans took them out of society. Their student loans took them into homelessness. There's 1 million defaulted student loans in the United States of America. That causes a lot of homelessness and suicide. There's just pain and suffering and woe all over this country. But because people stare at that idiot box all the time, and they just drink beer and drive snowmobiles, go to hockey games, watch people throw a ball back and forth, 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 back and forth on television or in person, they don't know what's going on in the real world. I hope this video helps to explain a little bit of what is going on in the real world. I am capable of running a corporation. I don't want to, but I'm capable of it. I certainly have that skill. And I would do it better than the people who ran the last company I was at. Guaranteed. And if you don't believe me, just give me the chance. Don't not give me the chance and then claim you don't have that kind of skill. No, give me the chance. Put your money where your mouth is. If you're out there listening and you have a job of that nature, or you want to elect me president of the United States so that you don't have one of these corrupt gangsters, one of the Clintons or the Bushes, or for God's sakes, Trump, who actually talks about how he deals with the mob all the time in his business dealings. If you don't want one of those losers in office, and you want somebody who cares about other people, tell you what, start a campaign to make me president of the United States. Or let me be the president or the CEO of a company. Give me the chance and watch what I can do. But you're not going to do that, are you? And you know what? That's okay. You don't have an obligation to make me president of anything. But you do have an obligation to view reality correctly and to treat me with all due respect. I'm making these videos and these audio videos for a reason. It's to help educate people out there. It's all I can do. I do not have my head in a bottle. I hate the taste of alcohol. Very rarely do I drink alcohol, maybe at a wedding. I just think it tastes awful. I would never use drugs, ever. Never have, never will. I won't do anything that messes with my mind. I love my mind. I have been blessed with a good brain, a good mind. I'm not going to mess it up with drugs. So what do I do in this car? I'm starting to shake right now. You can't see this, unfortunately, but I'm starting to shake physically because this, what is it, 5 degrees below zero, I think it is outside, right? I don't. You heard it at the beginning of this recording. The temperature is seeping into this car, and any heat I had generated earlier is gone, so I'm really starting to get cold. And I'm going to have to end this video. I hope this helps to demonstrate, though, a little bit of just how much I have lost. And the reason I lost it again is because of pure, total apathy, negligence, incompetence, and corruption on the part of other people, specifically Minnesotans. In San Diego, you have people like Nick. You have people like Eddie, when he lived there, before he moved to Seattle to join Pearl Jam. People who did what it took to take care of other people. In Meannesota, this is what I get. people staring at me living in a car and not giving the slightest damn about it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for listening, everyone.